Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne and this channel is all about bringing you content about childhood sexual abuse. On this channel I share things to do with my experience, I share things to do with news stories that I come across, and also from time to time I also interview other survivors and their supporters in hopes of raising awareness about childhood sexual abuse and topics surrounding this childhood trauma. So if this is the type of content that you're looking for, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified of any new uploads. And if you like the content, please hit the thumbs up button. So in today's video, it is really just a quick story time about the time I found out that my primary school teacher was a paedophile. Now, I grew up in the 80s, so when I was in primary school, I was like between the ages of 5 to 11 years old. When I got to year 3 and 4, which is the equivalent now of probably years 5 and 6 in primary school, we started to have classes with different teachers. In primary school, predominantly, you always only ever had one teacher teaching you. But as I said, as it got to the later years, year 5 and year 6, we started to have a couple of other teachers that would take lessons with us. But one of those teachers, his name was Mr. Tyndall. And on a Friday afternoon, we were sent to his class to have activity time. So that could consist of like games, like board games on the tables, and also as well watching movies. During those Friday afternoon movie times when we sat on the carpet and watched a video on a VCR on a big TV, some of you who weren't around in the 80s probably don't even know this, but they used to have these big kind of TVs that had the doors that opened, and it had the big TV screen inside, and then it had the VCR with the press down buttons where you'd put the cassette tape in. During that time, Mr. Tyndall always used to have a group of boys sitting on his lap. Not all at the same time, but there was a group of boys in rotation that he would have sitting on his lap. There were 2 white boys, a black boy and a mixed race boy. One of the things that I noticed and other kids noticed in the class was that it was always just these 4 boys that were allowed to sit on his lap. But then also as well, what was really weird is that he would be stroking just above the back of their trouser line. So just before, where the top of your kind of bum starts, he would have his hand rubbing around that area, around that back line. And at the time we used to, because we were like 10 years old, we would comment to each other in the class about why he was doing that, not understanding or realizing that what he was doing was grooming these young boys and also, sexually or inappropriately touching them. But we knew what we were looking at was weird. And there used to be these kind of little conversations that used to be had amongst us as children, but we didn't know what we were looking at was wrong, but it felt weird to look at. Also as well, during that time when I was witnessing this teacher's behaviour with these 4 young boys during movie time on a Friday afternoon, I was also going through my own sexual abuse as well, because as I've mentioned on other videos, I was 9 years old when my abuse had started, and this that was taking place within this classroom was during the age when I was 10 and 11 years old. So it was weird to see this teacher doing this, even though I didn't have a name for what he was doing. None of us did in the class, and I didn't even have a name for what I was experiencing at the time as well. I noticed at the time that when he was doing it, obviously he was the only adult in the classroom. There wasn't anybody else, another teacher in the classroom with him, because, we were a pretty small class. We sat on the carpet and watched a movie. They probably thought, children don't need a lot of supervision to do that. Sometimes during that session where we were watching movies, he would alternate the boys. So he might have one boy in his lap for an hour or so, and then put another boy in his lap for the rest of the film. This is what he did every Friday during movie time, and that was that. Nobody said anything about it. I remember, that this teacher as well would have these boys come over and stay at his house. Only these 4 boys, no other boys. Their parents would allow them to go over to his house for weekends. Many years later, like 15-20 years later, I wanted to try and, retrace some things to do with my primary school. I was doing a Google search and I came across this teacher, Mr. Tyndall's name. And when I read the article, I was truly disgusted and shocked to find out that this teacher was convicted of child sexual abuse. So I did originally have the full-length article which I saved when I went back to get the story to share with you. The site owner where the article was displayed has locked down the site. So I could only find a small article about this story. A teacher who sexually abused 2 boys and took away their childhood was today jailed for 21 months. Peter Tyndall, 41, from Streatham, South London, admitted 5 specimen charges of indecency with youngsters whilst he was teaching at a school in Wandsworth, South West London in the 1980s. His conviction was quite a few years ago now, so he may have passed by now, I don't know. The damage that he did actually was indescribable, and as I was reading that story, I was remembering one of the brothers, the 2 white brothers that I mentioned, how he used to always be angry at school, and just connecting all the dots now, it makes sense. It's sad that Wandsworth Council didn't pick up at the time that this teacher was doing these things in school, even abusing a young boy in the photocopying room. It is sad that he was able to then go on to another school and do the same thing again to boys in that school. And the barrister, his barrister saying, he's got a fiance and his life's upside down. He should have thought about that before he started abusing these young boys. The things that he did to them was absolutely degrading, making them wear diapers and feed out of a baby bottle. This paedophile deserved what he got. The fact that he was allowed to leave Joseph Tritton's school with those allegations against him classed as unsubstantiated, and then be able to slip off the radar for a little bit and then go and apply and be a teacher at another school is actually alarming. The fact that he's even had this type of thing against his name should have automatically put warning flags against him teaching, but unfortunately it didn't. I do think now about those 4 young boys that I remember in class, and I wonder how they are. I wonder if any of them have been able to get the support and help that they needed to be able to process their experiences. And I do wonder if any of the other teachers were a bit alarmed at the fact that he was taking these young boys, to his house for weekends and doing all these different types of things. I can only imagine the horror for the parents finding out that this teacher that they trusted their son with was sexually abusing their child, and the only reason they trusted this teacher was because he's a teacher, somebody who was an authority figure, somebody in a position of trust. A lot of paedophiles are in these type of positions. A lot of paedophiles use these type of positions to gain access to children, and when I think about that he was allowed to do that, it just goes to show that safeguarding in the 80s for circumstances such as these were non-existent. I don't even know how people got into teaching positions back in those times. And as I said in other videos about growing up in the 80s, there really wasn't anything out there about safeguarding. There wasn't anything out there about sexual abuse that children could refer to identify if they were going through it themselves. And for a lot of us that went through childhood sexual abuse in the 80s, we knew that something was wrong that was happening to us, but not having the education or the knowledge to be able to kind of connect the dots meant that those of us that went through it went undetected, meant that a lot of us didn't get the help that we needed. But I wanted to share this story with you because I wanted to highlight that a child could be going through sexual abuse and not know that it is wrong, or not knowing the things that are happening to them is wrong. 90% of sexual abuse is committed by someone the child knows, loves and trusts. There are so many children that are going through this, whether it's with a teacher or somebody that they know that's not in their immediate family circle, but don't know what to do about it or how they can articulate it. But that is it for this video. I will leave a link to that article down in the description box below, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.